even more so getting started, I guess. So I hope you had time to read this quote. Carla Jean is driving, so I hope she did not read it. But I'd love for you to take a minute and respond to this quote that Amy, this is an excerpt from an interview Amy did in 2020. And it may not still be true, but we'll just pretend at least part of it is true. And if you have any thoughts, a word, a phrase to add to the chat in solidarity or an encouragement, you can do that either now or before we finish later tonight in the next hour or so. I'll just sit here for a minute if you want to read it, and then we will move on to the next thing, which will be to take a few deep breaths. And then we're going to listen to a poem to help us transition from whatever we were doing before we came here to do this thing together. I like to transition into things with a little more intentionality. So let's go on and do that. Let's go on and take some deep breaths. If you want to add something to the chat, you can. And then we're going to listen to a poem. And then I will start asking Amy lots of questions.
Hi, this is Leila Shati reading The Rules. There will be no stars. The poem has had enough of them. I think we can agree we no longer believe there is anyone in any poem who's just now realizing they're dead, so let's stop talking about it. The skies of this poem are teeming with winged things and not a single innominate bird. You're welcome. Here, no monarchs, no moths, no cicadas doing whatever they do in the trees. If this poem is in summer, punctuating the blue, forgive me, I forgot there's no blue in this poem. You'll find the occasional palisinid wasp, proposals vaporized and exorbitant, angels looking as they should. If winter, unsentimental sleet. This poem does not take place at dawn or dusk or noon or the witching hour or the crescendoing moment of our own remarkable birth. It is 2:53 in this poem, a Tuesday, and everyone in it is still at work. This poem has no children. It is trying to be taken seriously. This poem has no shards, no kittens, no myths or fairy tales, no pomegranates or rainbows, no ex-boyfriends or manifest lovers, no mothers, God, no mothers, no God about which the poem must admit it's relieved. There is no heart in this poem, no bodily secretions, no body referred to as the body. No one dies or is dead in this poem. Everyone in this poem is alive and pretty okay with it. This poem will not use the word beautiful, for it is this calling a thing what it is. So what if I'd like to tell you how I walked last night? Glad, truly glad, for the first time in a year, to be breathing in the cold dark, to see them, the stars I mean. How before something stops me, I nearly wept on the sidewalk at the sight of them all.
Okay, we could totally just talk about that poem for an hour, but we won't. And welcome to everyone. Welcome, Amy. I am going to switch what I said. I'm going to go on and change what I said I was going to do and go back to that quote for a minute and ask you if it's still true. That's where we're going to start. And then we'll talk about Taylor Swift's books and your book cover, and then reading and writing life, and then the book. So we have to talk fast.
I can do that.
Let me find that quote. Where did it go? Where did I put it? Here it is. So is that still true?
Um,
Let me share it.
I mean, yeah, and let's see. I have literally no recollection of um I mean, yes, I mean, definitely it is true. I certainly don't want to repeat certain experiences, and I don't want to be like closed off, but I think I am more closed off, like not necessarily in writing, but in life than I might have been in 2020.
Okay. Well, thank you for commenting on that. And maybe we'll hear more about that soon. Um, this is your book cover with your Taylor match that you did
Mm.
for your Instagram account, Taylor Swift is Books. I will leave that there while we chat a bit about Taylor Swift is Books. So how did this Instagram account come about? Just tell us what you want us to know about that. And then I want to hear how you came up with this particular match for your book cover.
I don't remember exactly when it started. I know that I made a book match for a friend who was a fan or is a fan or, whatever. Um, and I had made them for some other people. And one day I was like, oh, this could be like a whole Instagram account. And it would be perfect for that since it's a visual medium. This is before like Reels took over. And, but, so I just sort of started it, and at first I was really like not. I would just like post like 8 a day. I'd like post them when I made them or whatever, and then I got more strategic about it. Like, um, I'd post X times. I'd post fewer times a day, and now I post once every 3 days or 3 times every week, um, which is not important. But basically, it pairs Taylor Swift with mostly small press, mostly women's book covers. Um, and it's been, I mean, it's nice for me because it's created a good little community that we have around it.
Mhm.
And people like even like normal people, like not writers, see the books, like it can get to like thousands of people with that, and usually like not even 1,000 people buy a small press book. So I feel like I feel it's what I do instead of writing reviews and doing interviews and stuff because I hate them.
Okay.
I like that
I
I'm
agree
like
with
in
that part. That
control.
makes a lot of sense. That's kind of why I'm starting to do this because I prefer to do
Mhm.
this than whatever else we have
It's
to
the
do.
pitching. Like I don't like the pitching. It makes me
Yeah.
feel like the other person is sitting there going, she's not really trying. Like it takes so long, and it's like, you don't know if somebody's going to want it, and it's just like, you know, well, we already have it, so
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
reviews are just stressful. But anyway,
what
go on. I said reviews are just stressful. Like it's just like,
are,
and I mean, I don't want to say something mean, you know.
yeah.
Um, but anyway, go on.
Well, I was just gonna say, I forgot to have everyone introduce themselves. And since it's a small group, I want to take a minute to do that. Sorry,
Yeah,
I got excited about the quote and then the book cover. Um, and since it's a few of us here, I think it would be good for us to know where everyone is from. Even though you might have put it in the chat, I'm not looking. So put in the chat where you're from. And Alyssa, just say real quick why you're here. It's probably just like why you're here, what made you interested in this book, and that's all.
Sure. Alyssa Munoz. I am from Huntsville, or I live in Huntsville, Alabama by way of New Orleans. I was interested in this book, one, because basically anything that Charlotte says is a good book, I trust implicitly. And just the idea of codependence and mental health and all of that is near and dear to me. if something like that can be near and dear to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Alyssa. Eleanor, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Eleanor. I am in Yucca Valley, California, which is near Joshua Tree. And what brought us to what interested it in the book, I'm just making sure. I've read Amy's book and it is amazing. Not only the courageousness of the writing, but I also love what she does with the form of the essay or the memoir or the hybrid researched essay memoir, which I think it is. So I love the work she does with Taylor Swift's books, and I love the work that you do, Charlotte. So happy to listen to you both speak. And this is Biscuit, who loves
Oh, hey, Biscuit.
calls too.
Awesome. Thanks, Eleanor. Carla Jean, you're where you were going. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick and tell us what attracted you to this gathering in this book?
Sure. I'm Carla Jean, and I live in Birmingham, Alabama, like Charlotte, and was at Charlotte's house earlier today. Not to humble brag, I'm just plain bragging. Anyway, so it's great to have friends who are also maybe a little bit addicted to books. Um, and this particular book and this event grabbed my attention for a couple of reasons. Speaking of addiction, I'm just always interested in any memoir that brushes up against conversations around addiction because of some personal family history. And also, I love memoirs, essays, and particularly from women. And then also just the cover of it is really beautiful. So that'll make you sit up and pay attention to. So those are some things.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, back to the questions that I had to ask you. And I'll as much as I want to look at the book cover and Taylor, I will stop sharing so I can see you better. Okay, so let me find my question.
You guys are all relatively close to me, except for Eleanor, whom I know anyway.
Yeah, tell us where you are,
'cause
Amy. Sorry.
I'm in Destin, Florida, which I would hope Birminghamans would know. You know where Destin is, don't you, Charlotte?
Yeah.
Like
I've been there.
people come here for vacation. Yep, yeah. And I'm in bed with my dogs.
I'm glad you're in bed with your dogs. I am tempted to talk more about Taylor Swift's books and everything. What do you want us to know about the cover and the match for your book and your match? And then we'll move on from that. Like, because I just have so many things to ask you about the book. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this one, I feel like it was pretty easy because, well, the earlier that's not really always true. I would say the earlier I did it, like the easier it was because I hadn't used pictures, multiple times. Like I'm not going to get that pictured anywhere else.
Mhm.
But the main thing for me was that she had on a pink coat and green shoes and a little tape colored thing in her hair. It's like literally everything on, like she is the flower. And so it was just kind of perfect. I was just like, that's mine.
Yes. There was a match you did recently. Was it like the mascara or something? And like a tiny wisp of a black line. And I think I was the first one to notice like that particular detail. Like your matches are pretty brilliant. Like you put a lot of thought into them, and
I think a lot of it is that I know all the pictures so well that I'm like, I don't have to scroll anymore. I just go like book. Oh yeah, one of those or maybe that one. And I try it with a couple things and I'm done. It
okay.
used to take me like hours,
Okay.
but now it takes seconds.
Well, and you have so many more pictures to work with thanks to the Eras tour.
Yeah. Tour was like a big injection of content that I needed.
Yeah. Well, and it made you have a match for my book, which I appreciate. So thank
Yes, yeah. Well, the Lavender Haze
What's the
video.
video? Hmm?
The Lavender Haze video is your
That's what it was.
match.
It was the video, but still recent Taylor Swift things helped
Yeah,
me.
Midnights. Yeah.
Um, okay, so what are some of your favorite Taylor Swift songs right now? And then we'll talk a bit about your reading and writing life.
Right now, Dear Reader, Cowboy Like Me, the new ones, the vault tracks from 1989. I have recency bias. You're Losing Me. It's just so it's hard to say because there are just so many songs that you get kind of like um uh choice paralysis, you know.
Yes. Yes.
But Coney Island is also always one of my favorites, and High Infidelity.
Okay. That's a lot. And you could probably keep naming more,
Just got a lot of songs.
which I love. Okay. Um, so I'm going to transition now, not smoothly, into some questions about your reading and writing life. And one question I like to ask writers is, how do reading and writing help you belong to yourself, others, and the world?
This one was when is really kind of tough for me because I almost think that, I mean, this is a way of answering the question that is relatively straightforward, but like I think I part of writing for me is that like I never really felt like I belonged. And so like I could sort of go into this place that I made and, you know, not really have to worry about that. And part of what I like to do with writing is sort of I don't always want to be likable. I want to challenge people. Like I don't want you to like I don't want to feel like I'm like trying to like reach someone, you know what I mean? I want them to just sort of like get like from wherever they are, like just sort of like I guess when I think of belonging, I know I probably shouldn't, but I often kind of think of that like, yes, we all think the same thing and we all like have those same approved thoughts and we, you know what I mean? Like, and and I know that you don't mean it that way.
Mhm.
But like when I am writing, it's a solitary process. And I think that it doesn't really hit you that it's part of the world until it's going to come out, you know?
Yeah.
It's weird now that like I have experienced having a book come out, like writing something, and I think in books, so it's like, you know, it's kind of weird writing, thinking like I know what this is like when it's over, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, I think reading is definitely a thing, like where I feel more like, you know, um, it creates like a sort of community between you and the narrator, or you know, maybe the writer sort of. But I think like in terms of like the actual like writing, like really, you know, sitting down and writing, like I don't think about like what other people will think of it. I almost sort of like I'm what I'm writing right now. I almost sort of want to piss people, I want to piss people off a little bit. Um, and I there's something about me that like bristles when like I'm supposed to think something or feel like cuddly. And you know, does that make sense at all?
Yeah. Yeah. So it is now, I wish we could just talk about belonging and whatnot for the rest of the time, but I won't do that to anybody. Um, it sounds like the writing process helps you be more of who you want to be. And you don't care at all about necessarily connecting with others. But I think I'll just say, as a reader,
Mhm.
your words help me feel less alone in some ways, because it is disruptive, and your words about pain and relationships, even though it's a different experience and a very specific experience, that universal kind of knowing comes into play. So anyway,
I mean,
it's
definitely wanting other people with chronic pain, especially people who take opioids for it, to feel like they were finally represented, as not like, I used to be bad and then I got better, you know?
right.
Like I definitely I did want to do that, but I didn't really think it, you know what I mean? I didn't really, it wasn't like part of my process, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah,
But I
you weren't
do,
sitting
yeah.
down going, I want all those people to feel less alone in the world. Like, you
Yeah.
weren't thinking that, but that's
I mean,
part of
it
what.
definitely was behind, like, you know, I did, like, that was like a goal that I hoped that, like, when anytime someone emails me or puts it on Twitter or whatever and says that they related to it because they're a pain patient, some people say they related to it because they had addiction issues, and I also appreciate that. Um, I don't consider myself to have addiction issues. Maybe other people, I don't know that everyone else agrees with me about that.
But would you say David?
Oh
David,
yeah. Oh, no
he
question.
did-
Oh, no
yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I
I
mean, like,
still
there's
talk to him every
definitely
now and then.
addiction. There's definitely addiction in the book,
He's,
but
oh no, no question. There's addiction in the book.
yeah.
He's doing much better.
Oh, good, good. I didn't know if I was allowed to ask about him or not.
No, you're allowed. For a while we weren't talking, but he can't forget my phone number because it's been, I mean, it's been the same since I was 17.
Mhm.
And so every now and then he'll call me, and one day I was like, can't hurt. And I mean, mostly we just like make fun of each other and laugh. And it's
Yeah.
really weird. But anyway, go
Well,
on.
well, I'm glad he's doing better, and I'm glad y'all are still in touch-ish. That has to be so weird, like, to
It
be
is really weird. It's really weird.
What does he say about the book? Now, I'm totally not asking any of the questions I had.
Oh man. He thinks that I made Destin seem grittier than it is. And I mean, it's not gritty, but it is in this little corner where he lived in above this, like, and then Niceville and Fort Walton can not, I mean, gritty is a little bit like, but I'm really, I know he read it and I know we talked about it, but like, I mean, well, he used to tell for his first dates that his ex was writing a book about him. And so then they'd Google me and find essays that I had published, and they'd send me messages like, "Oh my God, thank you. He told me that same lie." I was like, David, that's not his real name. Uh, though you can find it online. I accidentally did not change it a couple times.
Whoops.
Yeah, really be careful about dating writers.
Yes, yes.
Watch out, she'll write a song about you. But I mean, I was like, that's not a compliment. That's a red flag. Like, my ex is writing a book about me.
Right. It's
You
definitely a
don't
red.
tell people that, idiot.
Yes. So one question I did have written down is what was your hope for the book, and how were those hopes fulfilled or unfulfilled, or?
Well, my main hope was that I would transform the way we talk about pain and pain care and addiction. And that was a very big hope for a book, and a small press book at that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that like my like real like realistic hope is that some people will come out thinking differently, and some people will find themselves in it when they've never seen themselves represented in literature, because I had never until, I mean, the closest I had gotten was Amy Berkowitz's Tinder Points, my fellow Amy. We call each other by, or the literary Amy's go by last name. So Berkowitz wrote this book called Tinder Points, about her fibromyalgia, and it's the closest thing I had ever seen. And so that was kind of like my can't think of the word right now. But like I want to say like cornerstone text, but that's not really right. But that was like the closest thing that I had, as an example or whatever to what I was doing. So like if I can make someone feel even more like the way that she made me feel, I feel like that's a success.
Wow, that's great. And based on the fact that you've received messages from people, I mean, it sounds like you've done that. And I mean, I'll just say that I have some pain issues, but not at all to the degree that you do. But I will say that your words have helped me think about opioids and pain care very differently. And it's helped me, I would say, have more compassion for people who are just trying to not feel like shit all the time. So,
yeah, I mean, a lot of pain patients seem really mean, but you have to remember what we deal with. Like, I've gotten really lucky lately. I have a doctor who doesn't really give a shit. And I mean, he gives a shit about me, and I think that if private equity didn't own his practice, he would probably up my dose, but he won't, because we've talked about that. But like, he's not like a dick about anything, and he's, that does the, minimum drug tests and all that. And my psychiatrist is amazing and thinks that everyone should just listen to what I say. But I've gotten like pretty lucky in the last like few years, in that I haven't really had to deal with a lot of like, I was in the hospital recently for because I have gallstones, and I'm getting something out, and I'll get my gallbladder out soon. And the doctor goes, that or one of the doctors was like, that's not the way I would treat that. And I was like, I know. I know. It's not the way most people would treat it.
yeah, yeah.
But
You have people
but I
that,
mean, it was actually a really nice way to say it. It was like, he was like, I mean, that's not the way I would treat that. Like, it was kind of like a joke. Like, I was like, oh, okay, people have said worse.
yeah. So people have been worse about that, like
Oh
judging.
yeah, one time this lady said, this woman said, doctor said, I treat patients who are actually sick.
Oh, wow.
I went in this is after I'd written the book. I
Uh-huh.
went in the manager's office, and I was like, I'm giving me my money back.
That is
I mean, I
wild.
was trying, but I know. I was like, what the fuck, lady?
Like people can be terrible.
Doctors especially, because they think that I could go off on that forever.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure we've all had situations with doctors who have been
Don't
unhelpful
listen to doctors don't listen to women.
in that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know Eleanor mentioned your writing and the structure of the book and the structure of your essays or your approach to the essay. And it really is brilliant. I was rereading some of it and was like, oh my God, I have to reread the whole thing, because And it made me want more. Like it made me want to read more essays about your drug history and your your medications and you trying to find medications and your relationship. Like so a question I have for you is, after you will not write another book like this, but if you were to, like, what would you write? And do the chapter ideas keep coming? Like, have they kept coming even after you wrote this? Sorry, that's a very long question.
I do still kind of see, I kind of see scenes in my head, and I'm thinking like, I sometimes I'll like think of like little sentences and stuff, or like, where would I put this in the book, or like, how would I, like, or I'll compare something like it can get so much worse than I thought, like it, but I mean, I feel like I did so much with forms that sometimes I'm almost like tapped out on it. I've been writing, I mean, I kind of put a pause on it, but I've been writing these essays that are in the form of dictionary definitions. One was in an issue of, I think, the most recent issue of Grist, and it's called hash mark, and it's a definition for the word mark, and it's about an ex named Mark. So I had started one for Ray and Rob, which is hard because Rob is hard because it's like so obvious, like, like steal, take, whatever. And then I was trying to think, like, what do I do for the one? Do I do things for the ones who don't, have names? But it's really fun. Like, I give myself these weird parameters, like the sentence has to end on like the end of the line without justifying the page. And like I don't know why I do it, but it is weirdly generative. Like, there's something about making yourself stick to a form that like brings up things that you might not have thought about before, or like sort of like, because you can't do something or you have to do it this way, it's generative, in like, it's really useful. I think that it's like the dictionary definition type essay, which is kind of what the medication list essay is. That one I think is really helpful for like, if you're starting a new project and you're not sure like exactly like where to start or where you're going or whatever. I feel like that one kind of like helps you. That was the first thing I wrote. It wasn't all medications. Sometimes it was, just like work. No, it was, I think it was all medications. But that one was the first one I wrote, and it was the easiest thing I had ever written in my life. And I was like, this is, the approach. I have always wanted to try writing something like an auction catalog. And writing something like a, why did I just forget this? Oh, in the form of a will.
Yeah.
And also hospital records. Like the form, in the form of like doctors' note charts. I had one that I was trying to do for this one, and I also tried to do an instructions for doctor shopping, but it sort of turned into actual instructions for doctor shopping. Like, yeah, this is hard. I can't do this. I don't know if it needs this. So I mean, there are definitely ways that I could like take. I sometimes feel like it would be nice to be able to sort of do like a part 2. But unless I'm trying to get this playwright friend to write a limited series with me, to adapt it into a limited series with me, which she says is hard because like if you adapt it into a movie, like you have a lot more options. But if you adapt it into a limited series, you have the streamers and HBO and Showtime, and like that's it. And I was like, yeah, well, that's what we're going for.
Yeah. I think it could work. Like,
I think it could work too. I think it would be really like interesting, and I think that it would be like, I think that a movie would be too short almost with the cuts like in time.
yeah.
There's sometimes I feel like people who read the book don't understand that there's like a 4-year kind of gap between, and maybe this is my fault, between, but I mean I have dates like very specifically on the in the pill bottle essays. Those essays that are the second essay in the book started out as, the whole thing started out as this medicine cabinet that narrated my drug history, and I'd roll up stories in pill bottles and they'd have very like detailed stickers, you know, and I'd have like fake Coke and like you know, like all little like stuff, a hospital bracelet, things like that. And it's like, so like the motel keys were like our actual motel keys, and because Brian Blanchfield's uh so yeah blurb ends with "Codependence gives you the room key and invites you to inspect the parameters of purgatory." I sent him one of the motel key things that had been in the, yeah. Yeah, it was cute.
Okay, I have so many things to say about the poetic form and being generative for writing essays, but I will not say it.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's the only kind of poetry really that I can ever write, because it has, and it's the only kind I can teach because it has rules.
That's interesting. But I would love for you to read a few paragraphs now from the book that somewhat represent where you are now.
Okay,
Body.
this is kind of funny because I made the hospital when I was when they wouldn't let me eat for surgery. I made them give me my very favorite migraine drug, butalbital with codeine. Except they didn't have it with codeine, so they just gave me butalbital. But so this sort of, I took it quite literally.
Okay. What page are you reading from?
Oh, page 13, actually.
For those of us who have the book with us. Okay.
And number 8.
Okay.
In DC, I swallowed butalbital with codeine like it was water. I probably ingested more pills than I did calories. I was the sole employee of a drug policy reform group that was really just an ugly website. My boss wanted me to update the news section by 8 a.m. Eastern, even though most of the news then came out of California and Oregon. I woke up so early I couldn't hold down a real breakfast. I'd nibble on melon slices and gag over my toilet. I drank coffee until 2 in the afternoon, when I could hold down a Potbelly sub sandwich, the only thing in DuPont Circle that wasn't meat or pizza or $14. I ate popcorn for dinner and smoked weed on my porch or in the beach chair in front of my TV. Aside from the tray the TV sat on, and the beach chair and my mattress, I didn't have any furniture in my apartment. I called the mom at night. By then, I had taken so many pills, she could hear them in my slurred words. "The work you do, are you?" she asked me once, and I said, "Yes, I'm stoned," because I preferred admit, this is before weed was legal. Weed was legal, because I preferred admitting to illegal drug use over telling the mom that I was high as fuck on prescription painkillers. I can't really get high on prescription painkillers anymore, but I did get IV Dilaudid in the ER last time I had a gallbladder attack. I didn't go because I was like, every time I've had one, I didn't go. Like I just be in like monstrous pain for 8 to 24, 48 hours. And because I didn't think they'd do anything. And then the minute I get there, they give me IV Dilaudid. I'm like, fuck. But I did get a little high from that. Huh?
You could have been getting like having relief from the pain.
I know. Well, I didn't think that anything would relieve it. Like it's, it's stuff moving around. It's gallstones moving around in like, I think my common bile duct. Like I think not to get too, but apparently my gallbladder is so full of gallstones that they
Okay.
just fall in and out.
Okay. I'm sorry. That sounds painful.
It's kind of funny. I mean, it does sound painful, but it's like I've been just sitting here for like a year or two, like, I'm sure it's fine. And then I'm like, oh,
It's not fine.
like when they found out that when they got the test, they like rushed me like in like I was like a so that one I was thinking I was reading it because I guess I could have also read the dictionary definition, but I was looking at it and I was like, oh, throwing up. That's a familiar thing lately.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm interested in like your relationship with pain and why you didn't, like why you sat in that pain,
Well, because
like what made you go to the ER finally that one time?
I was afraid of infection. Because I knew then that there was a stone in my common bile duct and
Okay.
that can lead to infection that can lead to sepsis. And obviously I didn't want to get septic.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
And my sister's a doctor and she told me to watch for pain and a fever. And even though I didn't have a fever, I felt like I had one. And I was right. There was a little infection. So,
Okay.
but it's just that, I mean, ever since 2016, really, doctors have just been so insane about like hysterical about opioids. Like I read a thing on Twitter today from a pediatric oncologist where like parents or like even parents, but like doctors as well, are sometimes they won't even give opioids to cancer patients. Some people will be in hospice and they won't give them opioids because they'll get addicted. It's
Even
like
though
they're dying. Like
yeah.
they don't have time. And even if they did, just keep giving it to them.
Yeah, like let them die without pain.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
Which
gotten really bad.
Well, I feel like our culture, it's like a lack of nuance in every possible way ever. And this is just
Yeah.
another like example of it.
But I mean, everybody was safer when we overprescribed because at least you were getting stuff from when you went to a doctor and you got pills, whether you needed or whatever, whether you were in pain or not, or whether you were using them medicinally or not, in the traditional sense. 10 milligrams is 10 milligrams, like what you're getting. Now everything is fentanyl. And even before that, when pills got expensive, heroin got cheaper. And heroin is just always like a roll of the dice because you don't know the strength. And nobody wants to do a test shot because it kind of fucks up your high. And so like one bag might be weak and one bag might be like, just killer. And you don't know. And you do your normal dose and it's just totally different. Like, so I feel like, I mean, I totally understand that, like, when someone has surgery, they don't need 30 days. They just need like 7 at most, for maybe, I mean, depending on the surgery. But like at the same time, there's the pendulum just swings. It doesn't sit in like a middle place or what it either goes way over here or way over there. And like it's like, are you guys stupid? Like, can you not figure this out? Like, it's mostly, I think, uh fear of litigation and like
Which makes sense. I mean, it's complicated or complex, I guess.
I mean, I want to feel bad for doctors because I know they spent a lot of time and money becoming doctors and they don't want to lose their licenses. But at the same time, I sort of feel like, and I especially feel like this with like abortion, like I kind of felt like the first time a doctor didn't stand up and say, no, we're not going to wait for this woman to get septic when we know she is going to get septic.
Right.
Like, let's just do the abortion, like, fuck it. Like,
Right.
the first times no one did that, I was like, so you guys just really are cowards. Like,
Most people are.
none of you has any backbone to just be like, fuck it, I'm, I'll make money on speaking fees or whatever. I don't know. Like, it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, it makes me very disappointed in humanity. Just the lack of people, like fewer people try to do the right thing than should be. And I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, that might be why we're not rich assholes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry it affects you and others in massive pain. But yeah. Along this line, like, I would love for you to read another passage, like a few paragraphs or so from the book that you wish people who love you would read and reread regularly.
Okay, this one is from the essay where I say a lot of mean things about my sisters. I mean, it's not entirely mean, but is it okay if we do like 2 sections, like they're short and one of them I have to skip? Okay, so again, we're starting on page 113. So our Lord and Taylor Swift is with us tonight.
Yes.
Okay. And number 15. I cannot write fairly about my sisters. I write about Chelsea's divorce, the betrayal she endured, but barely touch upon the pain it caused her. I let my anger take over the page. I move right to the story's end and write about Chelsea the way I see her now. Gregarious, loved, smug, smiling beside girlfriends and fiancés. I forget that her life hasn't gone as planned either. I never step back to to admire the kindness Beth shows her patients or the daring with which she handles the lives in her hands. I say nothing of the loneliness she expresses to me, our shared worry over whether we'll find men with whom to spend our lives. I complain about the way she uses her medical knowledge against me, but ignore the student loan debt she accrued to acquire it. I'm consumed by my pain, and I've stopped listening to my sister's sides of the story. I have to. Ignoring them protects me from their accusations and lets me retain my role as the persecuted one. In the stories I tell about my sisters, I'm always the sister who is slighted, the one who doesn't fit. I'm belittled and othered, Cinderella lacking her glass slipper. I know that's not right. I should have more empathy. What if I looked at my sisters and saw not the ways they've exacerbated my pain, but the pain I've inflicted on them? If Beth and Chelsea won't acknowledge that their concern and judgment hurts me, I tell myself I shouldn't have to consider their fear or disappointment. I know their misgivings are rooted in the way they love me, but I want them to love me, to like me, as I actually am, and not as they wish I were. I want them to think about headaches and opioids the same ways I do. And then we skip a little. My inability to write fairly about my sisters is not dishonest. It's a failure of will. It's self-protection. If I softened my edges, let Beth and Chelsea rub me bare, where would that leave me? I love my sisters. I recognize the things they do that bother me and the things they do that are kind, funny, honorable, admirable even. I can acknowledge that part of the problem lies in my rigidity in all the ways I let my headaches dictate what I will and can do. Beth and Chelsea have their own answers. They hold ideas about me, my headaches, and the drugs I take that I think are unfair, and I make assertions about the way my sisters treat me that they would surely deem the same. When we were little, and the dad read The Runaway Bunny to us, he'd replaced the mother rabbit printed in the book with Daddy Rabbit. My sisters and I always groaned in unison. But she's wearing a dress, we'd protest, pointing at the mother rabbit illustrated in her hoop skirt and apron. Who's telling the story? The dad would say, I'm telling this one.
Mm. You're such a good writer. I know
Thank
that's not
you.
why you read that, but like I just love her writing. Um, I mean, there's so much we could talk about. I have talked too much. I forgot. I'm supposed to let y'all ask questions. So I'm gonna stop for thank you for reading that. I mean, it is kind of vulnerable question to respond to with that reading. So I just want to honor that and honor the love you have for your sisters and your ability to be honest about where you are with them and where you don't want to be. All right. Do y'all have any questions for Amy about anything that we've discussed or not discussed? And it's okay if you don't. I have more I can ask. You can say it. There's just a few of us. So you can unmute yourself and say it aloud if you like. Or comments without a question mark.
This is not an important question, but it'll save me some Googling, or maybe it's in the book and I just haven't read it yet. Where did you grow up?
Oh, where I am now in Destin, Florida.
Okay.
So,
The-
Panhandle, Florida, the redneck part, not the southern part. I mean, not the part that's like Alabama, not the part that's like Miami.
Yeah. Yeah. I went to Florida State and I grew up in Florida. So
Oh,
that is,
yeah. Oh, wait, where
yeah.
in Florida? I saw that in the chat, but like I couldn't figure out
Yeah.
how to get. I saw Florida
Yeah.
State, and yeah, we're in Florida.
Yeah. I grew up in Jacksonville.
Oh, okay. I think
Yeah.
Tallahassee, but I went to UF. I will.
Yeah.
I will forever
Mhm.
insist upon our supremacy as a town, because you can like actually walk places in Gainesville. Can you walk places in Tallahassee?
I haven't been to Gainesville since like 96 or 97. So my impressions of it
Pretty
are
much
not
the same
yeah.
thing, anyway.
Tallahassee's changed a lot since I was in college, and Alyssa's reminding us that her husband is from St. Augustine, so which is where my family, Alyssa, I'm not going to hijack, but my family all left St. Augustine.
Where'd they go? Near
Alabama,
different. Oh, we're in
Mhm.
Alabama. Wait.
Dothan and Birmingham.
Oh, Dothan. That's where one of my TV stations is.
Oh yeah,
located.
yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, I'm just always fascinated by the way that like place influences somebody. So I was like, okay, well, she's in Florida now and she went to UF. I wonder where she's from.
Especially in the book, I live a lot of like I live in California for a little bit. I live in DC for just a little bit. I live in New York for a while. I'm in Florida some, I'm in Virginia some. Like it's like so like place is important, but it moves around a lot.
Yeah. So I'm excited to read it.
I'm excited for you to read it. I like your ceilings. Sorry, I always notice people's backgrounds. Her house has charm.
It does, like her the molding. Is that what you like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They are
I'm very
nice.
particular about my crown molding. Oh, I love baseboards. Oh, don't.
Okay, Alyssa says her computer is going to die, not her. So she's
Thanks
gonna
for coming.
run.
If you...
Alyssa,
I mean, eventually, but hopefully not tonight.
Yes.
Let's all.
It's good to see you here, Alyssa. And
Thanks
after
for
you
coming.
read this book, let's talk about it.
Okay, for sure. I will. I'm going to start it tonight.
Awesome. All right.
Let's
Okay,
talk
have a
about
good
it and have a Taylor Swift dance party sleepover.
Okay.
Yes,
on
that's
it.
fun.
Just a request.
Okay. Sorry, there's so much happening in the chat that I'm looking at right now.
Look at the chat.
Cool. Okay. Well, I
I
didn't
have
see.
a question. I mean, it sort of follows up on a question you asked, Charlotte, but I'm just curious, Amy, I know you're disciplined about writing, which I think is amazing because you're sort of doing the Taylor Swift as books stuff, and which is like a very online thing, but you're always like, I'm going to write now, but So I guess one, it's like a two-part question, and I know we're almost at time, so you can keep it brief. But one is just like, how do you maintain your writing practice when you're dealing with so many different things, whether it's the sort of online personality and community, or also just managing your own health and your family and, all the life
It's
stuff.
yeah, it's
And what are
hard.
you
It's
working
like
on?
hmm? And what?
It's like, the part two is like, what are you working on now?
Oh, I'm really excited about what I'm working on now. So I mean, the main way that I've figured out is, I think, best for me is to write longhand. And this might just be for this project right now, but like, because I mentioned the dictionary definition essays, like I have to type those. I don't know why. That's just like they have to, but I can do it on my phone, and for some reason that's like less taxing on my head than a computer screen. And I have to really make time for it and be like, I'm not gonna look, like I'm only gonna look at the Instagram if I go out and smoke a cigarette or whatever. Like I have to be like, don't, like, no, like and some days I'm like, I'm not gonna get anything done today. I'm just not, but I mean I miss it, and I get kind of mean when I don't do it. So it took me a while to get my footing on this, but I've been writing about and kind of an ex, kind of a friend. Like, I mean, we knew each other for 15 years, and like, we would fuck when he was on tour near me. And I mean, we were we were friends. We were, not just like, um, and then we dated for a little while, and he lived with me, and this is the person who stood me up for book tour. Did I tell you about? Yeah. And then he died. And so I've been writing sort of like, because there are things that he did that I would make most people go like, cancel him, burn him. We can never listen to his music again. But I think that his music is really great, and I want people to listen to it. And I want the idea to be that like people are complicated and they do shitty things, but that doesn't mean that we have to like shun them. I mean, like there are extremes, you know, um, but in general, most people are kind of dicks. And like, you know, it's just sort of, so like I have to make him like very human. And I mean that for the most part for 15 years he was like very, like he never did anything that would make me like, um and it's sad because it makes me miss him, and then I'm like, oh, you're like, and then I have like complicated feelings and stuff. But it's also cathartic, and also kind of nice to be able to like pull back up like a funny memory or whatever, you know.
So that's what you're writing about now?
Mhm.
Okay.
It's sort of, I kind of think of it as like a version of Claire Dieter's Monsters, but like very zoomed in.
Okay.
Did you read that one?
I have it, but I have
Yeah.
not read it.
It's so good. You should read it.
I will. What else do you think we should read?
Let's see. Right now I'm rereading Gina Frangelo and Robert Berge's memoirs to see how like two like, sort of problematic narrators write about their own relationship, even though there's not all that much Gina in Rob's book, not as much as there is in Gina's book. Let's see. Looking at I've been reading a lot from the TSAB list. I've started Wound by, I'm not going to get this right unless the book is sitting in front of me. But it has a Taylor, by a Russian poet, or a Russian, I don't know if she's a poet. The narrator is a poet, and it's kind of autofiction, so I don't know if she's a poet or not.
Okay.
that I has started off really well. For a while I was on a big poetry kick, and I would need to anytime I need to I want to tell people what they should read, I have to look at my Goodreads
Mhm.
and go like, okay, what have I read lately? So I, kind of, yeah.
You gave us a few. You gave us enough to work with. We have gone over time a bit, so we should probably stop soon. Sorry. It's been lovely. Is there anything else you want to say about the book, or Taylor Swift's books, or pain and opioids before we wrap up?
Oh, we would be here all night. No, I'm kidding. I think we did a pretty good job covering a lot of ground.
I think we did too. Thank you for having this conversation with us. And
Thanks for having
I
me.
do want to close out with another poem. So I'm going to share my
We
screen.
never did the liturgy that was going to make me cringe.
Oh, with everyone putting, well, like the breathing in the poem, did that not make you
Oh, is
want to?
that the liturgy? No,
That's the
no,
liturgy.
not.
You're good with all
Oh,
that?
okay. I thought it was going to be more like, yeah, like us repeating something, I don't know.
Oh, like a
Like
responsive reading of some sort? No, I
Or
wouldn't.
like a, we like when like you recite the Lord's Prayer or something in church.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that to you. That's what the poem is doing for us. The poem is the stand-in for any sort of creed or prayer that,
It's nice.
yeah, I just like having a, sort of
Kind of a,
ritual.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
kind of a palate cleanser that lets you go in with like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it wasn't cringy for you.
No, I didn't think it was cringy.
like we're unlikely friends, and because of your
Really?
heathenisticness
Yes.
and my Christianity. Although I'm a bit heathen myself. But anyway, yes, we'll close with this poem. Thank you all for being here and for being for participating. Thank you, Carla Jean, for
Thanks.
calling a
Yeah.
chill question, whatever that means.
No, she really is. Well, aside from my mom, my favorite Christian.
Will you blurb that on my book, my next book that comes out?
Yeah, that'd be
Aside
that'd
from
be
my
really
mom,
fun.
Charlotte's my favorite Christian.
Signed, heathen. Heathen. Amy Lorraine Long, noted heathen.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna listen to one more poem by the same poet that I'm sure you like other poets, but in that one interview that I quoted earlier, you said you like her, so I went with it. Let me share the screen, and this one's a little shorter. Okay. And I love that it has the audio file so we can hear her read them.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tari Day, author of Cardinal and River Hymns and Poem a Day guest editor for the month of January. I hope that you enjoyed today's offering brought to you by the Academy of American Poets.
Sorry, I didn't know how to fast forward. I should have listened first. Here we go.
This is Leila Shatti reading I Went Out to Hear. The sound of quiet, the sky indigo, steeping deeper from the top, like tea. In the absence of anything else, my own breathing became obscene. I heard the beating of bats' wings before the air troubled above my head, turned to look, and saw them gone. On the surface of the black lake, a swan and the moon stayed perfectly still. I knew this was a perfect moment, which would only hurt me to remember and never live again. My God, how lucky to have lived a life I would die for. About this poem. I'll let Anna McCarrick, an artist.
Okay. Sorry, I'll send y'all the link if you want to, you know what, I'll put it in the chat if you want to copy and paste it and hear her talk about the poem. I feel like that's a bit too much of a sidebar from what we've been doing. I do love her though, and love those poems. All right. Thanks again, everyone. And I hope you have a good rest of the night, and I hope to see you soon around. Bye.
Thank you.
Hi guys. Let's see.